Putin floods the frontline with poorly trained forces as Kiev launches a massive drone assault. The British Ministry of Defense has stated that Russian President Vladimir Putin is sending poorly trained troops to the front lines, citing the reluctance of some elements to fight in the conflict. In its daily intelligence briefing, the government emphasized that Russia is prosecuting nearly 100 soldiers per week for refusing to fight and that there will be approximately 5,200 such convictions this year. The high conviction rate demonstrates the low morale of the Russian army and the unwillingness of some elements to fight, the Ministry of Defense added. Even though some soldiers have refused to fight and attrition rates remain high, it is highly likely that Russia compensates for these losses by sending a large number of inadequately trained soldiers to the front line. Meanwhile, 6 servicemen were slain in an accident involving 2 Ukrainian helicopters, Ukrainian media reported on Wednesday. The Ukrainian news outlet Ukrainska Pravda reported that the incident on Tuesday involved widely used Mi-8 military helicopters and occurred near the town of Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region, close to the front line, but did not specify how the incident occurred. Putin is pulling Russia deeper into the chaos abyss, according to Kiev. Officials in Ukraine have indirectly blamed Vladimir Putin for the escalating attacks inside Moscow, claiming that his regime will experience chaos. As long as Putin remains president, the conflict will persist. Mikhailo Podolyak, a top aide to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, posted on social media that Russia is falling deeper and deeper into the chaos abyss. Attacks on Russia in recent weeks, including repeated drone strikes on central Moscow, have been witnessed for the first time by many Russians, whereas Ukrainians have been under constant threat of airstrikes for the past year and a half. Throughout the conflict, Moscow has indiscriminately bombarded Ukrainian communities with long-range missiles and drone attacks, claiming to only target military objectives, but has instead hit classrooms, hospitals, and theaters. Thousands of civilians have been slain in Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reports that 6 soldiers were slain in a helicopter crash. At least 6 Ukrainian servicemen on board 2 helicopters, carrying out missions in eastern Ukraine, were slain, according to the military. Tuesday's incident involving 2 widely used Mi-8 helicopters remained a mystery. According to a military communiqué sent via telegram, the soldiers perished while carrying out missions in the Russian-held eastern city of Bakhmut. According to Ukrainska Pravda, the incident occurred near Kramatorsk, a major town west of Bakhmut in the Donetsk region, where much of Russia's 18-month invasion of its neighboring country took place. The 2 helicopters were completely destroyed, and the bodies were discovered at the crash site, according to the report. A spokesperson for the Air Force identified as Yevhen Rakita told Suspiln that the men on board were officers. Ukraine launches massive drone assaults against 6 Russian territories, destroying military aircraft. At least 6 regions deep within Russia have been struck by Ukrainian drones in one of the largest such attacks since the beginning of Moscow's invasion. Russian officials have confirmed attacks on targets in the regions of Pskov, Bryansk, Kaluga, Orlov, Ryazan, and Moscow, with the Pskov military airfield attack, which damaged aircraft, being the most significant. A number of elite paratroopers are stationed there, which is over 600 kilometers, 400 miles, away from Ukraine. According to the state-run TASS news agency, at least 4 massive Il-76 transport aircraft were damaged, 2 of which burst into flames. Putin was notified after a drone struck Russian aircraft. Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Kremlin, stated that Russia is determining where the drones were launched to prevent future attacks on Russian soil. Mr. Peskov stated that President Vladimir Putin was promptly notified, as would be the case in any massive attacks of this nature. More than 600 kilometers, 400 miles, from Ukraine, where Moscow has amassed all of its elite paratroopers, a massive fire accompanied by the sounds of alarms broke out in northern Russia yesterday, as an explosion was spotted at a military airfield in Pskov. At least 4 Il-76 transport aircraft were damaged, with 2 bursting into flames, according to local news agencies. While Moscow asserted that it had thwarted every attack, it has traditionally characterized all Ukrainian drone strikes as failures, regardless of the harm caused on the ground. In a rare affirmation, the Ukrainian government stated that the Russian aircraft had been destroyed in Pskov, but declined to elaborate on the nature of their destruction. It generally refrains from commenting on attacks on Russian territory, despite claiming the right to strike military targets. Yes, 4 Illinois 76 transport aircraft were destroyed at an airfield in Pskov. They are irreparable. Andriy Yusev, a spokesman for Ukraine's GER military agency, stated that a number of these aircraft were also damaged. The information is being verified, he added. Ukraine's Western allies have publicly forbidden it from using the weaponry they provide to attack Russia, but they maintain that Ukraine has the right to conduct such attacks with its own arsenal. The Ukraine launches massive drone attacks in Russia, eliminating military aircraft. At least 6 Russian regions were attacked by Ukrainian drones on Tuesday night, marking one of the largest such attacks since the beginning of Moscow's invasion. Russian officials reported attacks on targets in the regions of Pskov, Bryansk, Kaluga, Orlov, Ryazan, and Moscow, with the Pskov military airfield attack, in which aircraft were damaged, being the most significant. A number of elite paratroopers are stationed there, which is over 600 kilometers, 400 miles, away from Ukraine. According to the state-run TASS news agency, at least 4 massive Il-76 transport aircraft were damaged, 2 of which burst into flames. Russia has already been attacked by more than 70 drones this month, which it accuses on Ukraine for conducting. While Kiev has never publicly claimed responsibility for these attacks, it has also never denied striking Russian territory. According to the White House, Putin and Kim Jong-un exchanged letters as Russia seeks munitions from North Korea. Wednesday, the White House announced that new intelligence indicates that Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have exchanged letters as Russia seeks weapons from North Korea for the Ukraine conflict. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby described the most recent finding just weeks after the White House said it had determined that Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, during a recent visit to Pyongyang, urged North Korean officials to increase the sale of weapons to Russia for its war in Ukraine. Kirby stated that Russia is seeking additional artillery ammunition and other fundamental materials to bolster its defense industrial foundation. The key to Ukraine breaching Russian defenses and placing Putin's forces on the defensive. Long-range assaults by drone and missile, as well as a raid on occupied Crimean territory that caught Russian forces off guard, are all part of Ukraine's recent offensive against the peninsula that represents Vladimir Putin's territorial ambitions. The capture of the vital village of Robotyne, about 3 hours travel east of Crimea, may be the most significant event. Gaining this footing will assist Ukraine in laying the groundwork necessary to break through to the coast of the Sea of Azov. Russia earns less from hydrocarbons and spends more on military expenditures. Thus far, sanctions have acted as a gradual toxin. The Russian ruble's depreciation exposed a vulnerability in President Vladimir Putin's fortress economy, which was swiftly patched by the Kremlin's economic team, allowing the currency to regain its footing, at least for the time being. However, the repair, and emergency increase in interest rates, cannot conceal the dilemma at the core of the Russian economy: how to finance the military without undermining the national currency and causing politically humiliating inflation. Despite widespread sanctions related to the conflict in Ukraine and the departure of hundreds of well-known Western corporations, life in Moscow appears routine.